Hi, I'm Park Howell, and I am a results leader.
You're listening to ResultsLeader.fm. Being a thought leader is easy. Getting results is hard. This show is for the results leader who lives and dies by their results. Here is your host and Chief Results Leader, Jonathan Rivera.
It's time once again, boys and girls, for another episode of ResultsLeader.fm. I'm so glad you're here, and today I've got a treat for you. It's a guy who shares some of the very same values that we hold in the highest regards at the Podcast Factory. This guy is all about telling better stories, and not just telling better stories to the people out there that we're trying to do business with, but telling better stories to ourselves. Today's guest is a TEDx speaker, an author, and the host of The Business of Story. I think he's got like 300 episodes out there. I've got Mr. Park Howell with me today. Let's jump into the interview. Park, welcome to the show. How are you?
Jonathan, I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm glad you're here, and I'm going to dive right into the first question. What book or books have you given most as a gift?
What book or books have I given? Great question. You know, I really like Christopher Vogler's The Writer's Journey. Covers Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, but in how writers can use it. But more importantly, I think, besides writing, it's just a great book for life in general, because it really underscores how we are all on these different journeys at differing levels, and it is just extraordinarily powerful.
Now, can you, for our listeners, share a little bit more about what the hero's journey is? Because this is actually one of my favorite topics.
Well, it's interesting. So to me, and a lot of people kind of dismiss it, those that don't really appreciate it. But what it is Joseph Campbell was America's foremost mythologist, and he identified this universal structure to story he called the monomyth, because it was so prevalent in several forms in virtually every civilization. In fact, if you look back to the very first recorded book, or story, I should say, of Gilgamesh, that was, a few centuries before Christ, it follows this same pattern, this hero's journey. I found it, learned about it when our son was at film school at Chapman University back in 2006, 2010. I said, hey, man, send me your books when you're done with them, since I'm paying for them. I want to know, what does Hollywood teach you to be a powerful storytelling, and what is arguably the most competitive storytelling market in the world, LA, Hollywood. And that's when I really dove into the hero's journey and realized how powerful it could be in business. And depending on who you read, the hero's journey is this 12 to 17 step process, framework to story. And when you match it up to anything from personal development, brand development, how we go through life, it is an absolute revolution of what we experience when we set out to accomplish something, the highs and lows, the fear, everything in between. So I simply took that framework and applied it to business, called the Story Cycle System. And now I've been working with it for almost 15 years in growing brands. But Jonathan, the one thing that I want to really underscore with Campbell said, and people think this is woo-woo, this is hoo-ha, but I tell you, I have experienced this ever since I did this. He says, when you follow your bliss, doors will open where there are only walls before, but you got to have guts to follow your bliss. I did that when I pivoted away from running my agency for 20 years. And in 2016, I dedicated myself to helping leaders of purpose-driven brands communicate using story and story frameworks. Because of that, I've had amazing things open up to me. And most recently, out of absolutely nowhere, I get an invite to be on a plane within 5 days to Richard Branson's private island of Necker, spend 5 days there working with a digital agency, large automotive groups, and Richard Branson in attendance.
Wow.
And teaching them about the power of story in their life and in their business. And if I was still running my little ad agency in Phoenix, Arizona, I wouldn't have gotten that call. But because I wound that down and focused solely on consulting, teaching, coaching, and speaking about the power of story to leaders around the world, those kinds of doors open where they never would before. That to me is the power of the hero's journey.
Yes, sir. And I believe that book is Joseph Campbell's book. It's The Hero with 1,000 Faces. It is a dense book if you're going to pick it up.
I wouldn't read that one. You're exactly right. I couldn't get through it. That is way too academic. The really, really good one that is really fun to read is Bill Moyer's book that he wrote with Campbell called The Power of Myth, following a 6 episode series on PBS where Moyers interviewed Joseph Campbell. They tell us that that is still the most purchased series on PBS of all PBS shows. It was that powerful. So if you want to know about it, get that book. That's a really fun, interesting, and accessible read.
Love it. Love it. So let's talk about something common amongst all entrepreneurs. Let's talk about failure. And what I'd like to know is how an apparent failure set you up for later success.
How an apparent failure set me up for later success. That's a fabulous question. When I was a freelancer, well, not a freelancer, no, I was an intern. I hadn't graduated yet. I grew up in Seattle area. And I was studying music composition and theory and communications. I got 2 degrees from Washington State University. And then that comms degree, I was studying PR. So I was working with a PR firm in Seattle called the Fury Group. This is circa 1983, just to date myself a little bit. I was given this job. We had a client in LA, and she did these lingerie, created these lingerie fashions out of antique garments and that kind of thing, sort of out of my wheelhouse. But Pat Fury put me in charge of bringing her in. They were called Bella Notte. They were opening a store up in Seattle, and my job was to land them some PR. Get them on TV to talk about this stuff. I thought it was a pretty fascinating show. They go to these antique places and attics and they pull up all this old stuff and then they create the lingerie out of it, very high-end lingerie. So they fly in, I pick them up, and here I am, just a snot-nosed kid still in college. And this woman was over the top, as you might imagine, from LA. She had this beautiful, beautiful model assistant with her. So now I'm totally intimidated, and I'm driving them over to King TV5, the local ABC affiliate. I had landed them a guest spot on the morning show, the most popular morning show in Seattle. And when we are driving in there, I'm recounting the story and what she's going to be talking about. And the client tells me she fabricated that whole story. That's not really how they come about their fabrics to create these lacy, frilly negligees. So essentially, unbeknownst to me, I had just totally lied and shared her fabricated story to get her on TV. And when we got there, I thought, what do? Do I say something to the producer? Do I just let it roll? And if she gets found out on TV, then I'm as big of a liar as she is. And what do I do? Well, when I got there, I went to the producer, who was this harried woman, and she was like screaming, running all over the place with the headsets on and all that. And I had to pull her aside and said, I apologize, but I didn't know this, but everything I pitched to you about getting her on the show is a fabrication. None of it's true. And she's like, well, what am I supposed to do now, Park? And I go, well, tell your host not to bring it up. Just talk about something else. So they put her on, and this woman was furious. She came over to me and delivered that overall line that you hear, "You'll never work in this business again, you hack." She just grilled me, and I felt horrible. It wasn't really my fault, but I felt horrible, but I was glad I came clean with her. And I went and told Pat Fury what had happened. And I said, I'm afraid I've, tarnished your agency with her. And Pat Fury just laughed. And she just said, Park, you handled that so well. Don't worry about it. I didn't know that was fabricated either. I'm sorry I put you in that position, but I am so glad that you came clean with that producer before that episode. And Jonathan, that has served me my entire life. We always have hard things to say to people around us and to clients, and we will blow it on occasion. And if we try to cover it up, we're screwed, because it's going to eventually, the story's going to materialize. I think that was probably one of my most seminal moments that has always enabled me to have the hard conversations with our clients and just to say, hey, man, I know you're not going to like this, but here's what's going down. And that served me well over my 35 years in this business.
I dig it, man. You survived that. Awesome. And still working. So what would you say is the most worthwhile investment you have ever made?
In myself, as corny as that sounds, to take the time to spend money on yourself learning, to spend money on yourself networking, to spend money on yourself to get the hell away from your office, from your work, and to invest in the books and the types of programs that are going to level you up. And we're always going to spend a fortune on our companies and on our products and services, but I think we don't give ourselves enough permission to lavish some of that investment on ourselves. I was just talking to our son yesterday. This is, again, Parker. He's the guy that's in Hollywood, graduated from Chapman. He's been over there ever since. And he does a lot of work in motion design for TV shows and films and 3D reality and blah, blah, blah. I can't even think, augmented reality and all this. Anyway, he said, Dad, I joined this group called METAL. And METAL stands for media, entertainment, technology, arts, and maybe literature. And he goes, I didn't know if I should do it or not. It was $1,100 for the year, but they have the most amazing guests on there. And I learned so much. And I reached out to this guy from NASA that's doing kind of some work that I'm doing. And now we're coming together to work on stuff. And that kind of underscores my point. He was sort of apologetic and worried about spending that kind of money on himself that he almost felt like it was frivolous investment. And yet he's already networked and picked up 2 major contacts that may well lead to contracts. But it wasn't why he did it. It wasn't so much for biz dev as it was for personal development. And it's going to lead to business, to a lot of business for him. And I think that is the most important investment people can make. And that is in themselves, especially coming off of a year like COVID 2020, which has rocked all of our worlds. And this is the wake up that says, all right, moving on. Do you want to keep doing what you've been doing, or do you want to really live the life you're supposed to live? If that's it, then you got to start investing in yourself.
I got to ask, how did you figure that out? Did you always know that investing in yourself was the route to go? Because you almost described it as a guilty thing.
It is. We were raised, I'm one of 7 kids. My parents had us in 9 years, so we're very tightly packed together, a gaggle of Howells, if you will. My dad was a Depression era guy, grew up in North Dakota with absolutely nothing, civil engineer, built a very nice, heavy construction company up in Seattle. We all worked for it as laborers to put ourselves through college and learned a ton in the process. And he always said, you got to get out there and you got to outwork that next person. You just got to pick up that shovel or someone else will, was kind of his mentality. So he had really, really instilled in us this work ethic. And one day he was down visiting. This is a couple decades ago, because he has since passed away from Alzheimer's, but lived a very long life. And he saw me running around, running my agency and doing this and doing that and showing up breathlessly at home when they're there and then taking them to dinner. And he finally asked me, he goes, Park, when do you ever take time to think? And I go, well, what do you mean, Dad? He goes, well, you seem like you're really busy and you've built a nice ad agency here, but you also seem like you're really hurried. When do you ever invest in yourself and just take time away from it? Because you got to be able to stop and think. And I think, Jonathan, that was my first wake up call. I always thought you just work. And that was when he just said, no, man, you got to get away from it. You got to go let your head breathe and just think about where you're going to go next. So that was the first I saw in it. And then I've had some really good mentors along the way, that have brought opportunities to me that were going to cost me money, but they were going to be personal development and professional development. And I always got 3, 4, 5-fold return out of whatever I invested in myself. That's when I started giving myself permission to invest in me.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So let's think back over the last 5 years. What new belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life?
Mindfulness, taking the time. And I've really worked hard on it for the last year. I've got this app that I bought, again, investing myself, called Breathe, BREETHE, and I love it. And I had done some mindfulness stuff before, but I was always so busy, ironically enough, that I didn't really give it good purchase, if you would. And it was even pre-COVID. I gave myself in 2020, when I kicked it off, one of my resolutions was really my only resolution, to be honest with you, Jonathan, was to become more mindful, take a deep breath and sit down. Well, I mean, it certainly helped through all the things that COVID brought because my business dropped off in half. I was working way harder for way less, just to keep promoting and being out there and whatever. And thank goodness it's all come back. And we were building this home up in northern Arizona, and it was costing way more money, of course, than we had budgeted. And everything just conspired, from COVID to business to building this home to just like utter stress. And it was the mindfulness, just taking the time of just getting centered and doing the work through that breathe app. That made such a huge difference. And now we kind of come out the other end of that tunnel. Things are picking up. Hopefully COVID, there's hope that we're putting this at bay with, the injections and all this stuff. And business is certainly coming back. But I just still find that mindfulness training is not only instrumental in getting through 2020, but has really helped bring a new perspective for me for 2021 and beyond.
Now, I want you, my dear listeners, our dear listeners, to go back and hear that, because it happened twice there. Once his dad told him to get away from the business and get quiet. And then his new learning is just practicing a little bit of mindfulness daily. So there is a trend happening there to remove, to unplug, and to allow your mind a second. So I love hearing that, and we don't hear that enough on the show. So let's talk about bad recommendations. What would you say are some bad recommendations you hear in your area of expertise?
Some bad recommendations in my area. So can I ask a clarifying question, Jonathan?
Absolutely.
Is it bad recommendations in, like, say, the kind of work that I do that others do alongside of me, or bad recommendations someone has given me that just didn't work for my business?
Which one's more fun? I want to have fun. Which is the better story?
Bad recommendations are never any fun, are they? I mean, when you bite into them and go, you know what? I think one of the worst recommendations I got, and I'm not going to go there because I don't want to throw them under the bus. All right, so that wouldn't be any fun. So let's go somewhere else. I think one of the bad recommendations that I had received in the past is, in this whole idea of investing in yourself, you can get overzealous doing that. You can invest in some stuff that doesn't work for you, and it's a total waste of money. You have to really be aware of some of the charlatans out there, quite honestly. So I did invest, and there's a lot of money. It's $10,000 I invested. This was pre-COVID. So this was in, middle of 2019, in a program that was assuring me that it would bring in high-end clients, clients at 10,000 and above for consulting. And here's how you do it. And you don't have to have a podcast. You don't have to have blog. All you do is use Facebook ads and Facebook, and you follow this program and you write it this way. And I looked at it, Jonathan, and I thought, boy, this is a different way than I've ever done it before. I'm going to invest in this and spend the 10K, and I'm going to justify it in a couple different ways. Number one, I'm going to justify it as a learning experience. If I get nothing out of it, at least I'll learn what their process is, and maybe I can become a better writer following their techniques and whatever. And then number two was, of course, if I can invest in this and get the return on my money, which they said I'd be able to do, within the following month and whatever, then of course it's going to be good for business. Well, I did it. And it was a very onerous program to get up and running. I mean, I spent a lot of time doing everything they said to do, not only from the content creation side, but from the technology funnel side, which is not my core at all. I really could give a crap about funnels and technology. I need someone else dealing with that for me, because that's just not the way I'm hardwired. Anyways, invest a couple months getting this thing up and running, a lot of money, and I got bupkis. And then they said, well, you're not doing it right, Mark. You got to do it this way. And then you got to do it this way. And you got to do it this way. And every way they told me to do it, Jonathan, was just completely inauthentic to who I am and what I'm about. And I just wasn't comfortable doing it. I tried it, but every time I pushed that send button or activate button, I felt creepy. And I bailed. I'm not doing it. So I was out 10 grand, crummy recommendation that is on me. It was totally on me because I bought into it. And what I learned from that is take a deep breath. When you get really excited about something like that, you're like, oh man, I can really make this happen for me. Go sleep on it. Take a weekend and give yourself 48, 72 hours. you're not going to lose anything in that process because it's urgency that they've welled up in you to buy now, buy now, buy now. Take 72 hours, man, and then come back and look at it again. If you are still as excited about it after that 72 hours, then go for it. And that was the last time I've spent a high ticket dollar for self-improvement that way.
Wow. Well, I think that that was a 10K lesson in what you don't want.
Yes, exactly right. Probably a 20K lesson.
With the time
down to the
everything.
amount of time involved. Yeah.
Yes, sir. We interrupt your regularly scheduled program for a public service announcement. We're going to get right back into this show, but I wanted to ask you a question. If you have been listening to the show for any amount of time and you've picked up even one single tip, then I need your help. Get the word out. Tell people about resultsleader.fm. Share it on social media. Share it on your email. Share it anywhere. Hashtag resultsleaderfm. Now let's jump back into the interview. All right, so now we're going to move on to the namesake of the show. We're going to talk about results, and I want to know, Park, why do results matter?
Well, hell, is there anything else? I mean, we're talking business, right?
Yes.
If you got negative results, that matters because you're not going to be in business. You got positive results, that's the whole gang. I mean, that's what we're all about, right? So it's always results. Why else would you do it? Why would you work out if you didn't get results? Why would you do mindfulness training if you're not getting results? So, yeah, I don't know how else to answer that, but that's what we're all going for is positive results and growth, right?
Let's do it, man. So let's think back over the last 5 years. What new realization has helped you get better results for your clients?
Simplify. Simplify, simplify, simplify. Remove the last two simplifies, simplify. We tend to overthink and overcomplicate everything. There's something about our Homo sapiens brain, and especially our neocortex, that we want to look, sound, and feel smart. And I'm as guilty as this as anybody. And so we end up piling on complexity when the real intelligence is to translate complexity into simplicity. And what I mean by that, Jonathan, is anything from some of the clients I work with, they've got 9 different social media channels and and I'm going, what if you just did one? Do you need 9 social media channels? Are they working for you? Well, I'm not really sure. Let's go look at the 3 dashboards that we've got that are telling us that. Well, could we get that just down to 1 dashboard? Even if you want to do 2 channels, okay, so let's do that. So what is your brand story? Well, we do this and this, and we appeal to all these people. And I go, no, you actually don't appeal to all those people. Who is the one person? What is that one? Simplify this thing. Let's get so simple and focused that it scares you, that you feel like, Park, if I focus only on that particular audience, I'm going to lose out so much business. When you feel like that, that's your sweet spot, because you focus on that one audience, simplify, and just say no to all the other throngs that you've been trying to court, then your business will grow. I mean, it will compound in growth. You will not believe the growth when you get super focused like that. And then, oh, by the way, it's going to draw in some of those other industries that you want anyways when you get focused. It goes completely against our survival brain that we got to, just collect as much fruit and goods as we possibly can as we're going through the savannah, when just the exact opposite is true. What do you hunt, and what are you specifically great at? So this idea of just simplifying, and that's what I'm really trying to apply in my own world in the business of story, is like, what can I get rid of? What superfluous stuff that is sucking my energy, sucking my enthusiasm, and sucking my money can I get rid of? And I think that's probably the most powerful thing I've learned over the last 5 years.
It is beautiful, man. Simplicity is beautiful and underrated. And I love it. I love it. I just had that conversation with one of my writers. We're writing a style guide and he wants to make it 80 pages. And I'm like, bro, 3 pages. He got it to 3. I'm like, bro, 2 pages. Now I'm like 1 page and he's losing his mind. And I'm like, if we can't say this in 1 page, we have a problem. So I love that. So let's go internal for a second here. What area of your business would you like better results?
Why would I like better results? Attracting the right clients. And I've got a test that I put my clients to when they show up, and I put them through the rigid and frigid test. And what I mean by that is someone once asked me, Park, how do you sell people on business storytelling? And I said, I don't sell them. I'm not even interested in selling them. I want them to come to me if they already have a sense that this can be powerful in their life. They just don't know how to do it. That's my customer. So sometimes I'll get people that call up, and this goes to the rigid test. They'll be like, well, I understand we should be doing some storytelling, and this guy gave me your name, and supposedly you're some kind of brand business storyteller guy. So tell me why I should hire you. And then my next answer is, no, you shouldn't hire me. Just go and do whatever. When you are ready to really understand how this is going to work for you, then let's talk. So rigid, so stuck in their ways. So, they're just not into it. Turn them aside. The other one then is the frigid test. And I'll get these. And these are the people that call that are all about themselves and all about their company. And it will show through the storytelling that I teach them. So it's not about their customers. It's actually not even about their people. They are very frigid. It's like me. How are you going to make me look good? Which is important, but it's not the sole thing. And so when I get the sense of that, then it's like, I don't think I'm the right guy for you. I think you need to go and find someone else. So in answer to your question, Jonathan, it's attracting more of the right kind of non-rigid, non-frigid people that are like, we got to teach our people storytelling. I know it's going to be really great for them. I know it's going to be great for the business. I will help you. I'll give you any of the information you need so you can come in and do your thing. I want to create wins for everybody. And that's my favorite client. And by the way, those are the clients that I have, but I have to weed through a lot of the others to get those. I would like more of those.
And that's that defining that you talked about earlier. So what results are you most proud of?
I'm most proud of when someone will send me a note and say, Park, I tried your and button there and I've been trying to land this piece of business for 4 months and they haven't given me the time of day. And I don't know what it is about that, but I just did it. I landed it. Thank you. Or someone else will send me a note and they will say, I was in your, sales training with our group 3 months ago. And through your storytelling and the work you did with us, I realized that I was actually living the wrong story at the wrong place. I have since left and have now landed this new gig over here. And I am so loving it. I want to bring you in down the road. So they had their own self-realization. So it doesn't come down to the numbers for me, Jonathan. It comes down to the people I actually help. I've been doing this advertising, marketing, sales business for a long time. I turned 60 years old just a month or so ago. My chapter now is how can I really help other executives and other people, almost all of them younger than I, learn from what I learned, through my career and teach them these storytelling constructs that they can use to grow their personal brand, their professional brand, their sales teams, their business, and to get really super straight on who they are and what they're about so that they can experience that same sort of bliss that I now experience in teaching this stuff. And they too will have doors open where only walls were there before. And when they send me those notes, that is my victory. That is like, whoa. And I can go for, weeks without getting one. And I'll get even a little bit down in the mouth. And then, is this really working anymore? Whatever. And then one will pop in. I'll read it to my wife and she will just say, see the impact you're making in the world. And that's what I'm in it for. The money and everything else will come. I don't got to worry about that. It just happens. But it's helping these people. That's what charges me up every day.
Yes. I love that. So any parting thoughts as we're coming towards the end here?
Yeah, I would tell your listeners, share with your listeners, not tell them, but share with them. As you are out there and listening to this wonderful podcast and thinking about your company and thinking about your place in the company and your place in the world, I just ask you, are you following your story? Have you carved your path in the forest? That's not always easy. Takes a lot of courage, but are you on your right path? And the way you answer that question is go back in your life. Quite often, this is in your formidable years, in your very young or maybe high school, college, and look at 3 moments in your life that have shaped and informed who you are today. And these are moments of curiosity that took you down a rabbit hole, that fired up your passion, that you're like, yes, that's so cool, way back when, that you didn't realize should be being expressed in your life now. Find those 3 moments, knit them together, see what the intersection is and how they come together. In my case, it was music, because I always loved playing music composition and theory. Knowing I wasn't going to probably make a living as a composer, I also got a degree in communications, journalism, public relations. And my whole life is about bringing those 2 worlds together, what I know about the crafting of music and the crafting of communications. And Jonathan, look at how it all came together in around 2005. Now I coach and teach not music theory and composition, but story theory and composition to help leaders grow. So that's how my worlds come together. And I wished it had come together maybe 30 years earlier. And so that's what I want people to think. Are you playing out your correct story right now? Just go look for those 3 moments in your life. And then I would finish with just this one thought. And this is the thought that I finish every single one of my podcasts over at the Business of Story, which I just, by the way, produced my 300th episode.
Wow.
I'm very proud of that, because you know how it is. It takes a lot of time and effort to do this, but I want people to remember, as they're working on their own story, that the most potent story they will ever tell is the story they tell themselves. So just make sure it's a great one. Thanks for having me here, Jonathan.
Wow. Where can our listeners get more from you?
Yeah, come on over to businessofstory.com. That's my site where I've got it loaded with tools and tips and techniques that you can download and use, and you can apply right away. And if you need me, if you want to reach out to me, you can just shoot me a note. First name is Park, P-A-R-K, at businessofstory.com. And since I got such a unique handle, Park Howell, you can find me on LinkedIn, Park Howell, and Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and all those. So feel free to connect with me there.
And we will be sharing links to everything in the show notes. Park, thank you for taking the time out to rap with us. Thank you for sharing your stories with us. And listeners, thank you for tuning in. We will be back in your earbuds next time. That is a wrap for another edition of ResultsLeader.fm. If you are out there getting results for your clients and you want to be featured on the show, go to ResultsLeader.fm now and apply to be on the show. And if you love what you're hearing, share the show, give us a rating and review, do anything to help us get the message out there. Thought leadership is easy, but results leadership is hard.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.